never. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the study session ahead of the school board meeting on Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Changes to the agenda.
No changes for the study session.
Thank you. Communications.
No communications for the study session.
And discussion items. We have some special guests this evening, and Dr. Finch, would you like to introduce them, please?
Certainly. We decided this year to try a different format, so we're not going to have PowerPoint presentations and such. I'd like to try to have more of an informal discussion, a chance for 3 of our directors to interact here with the school board. They will go over written reports that they had submitted. So those have been provided to the board in the board packet. So for the audience that's watching on the live stream, I'd like to give you a chance just to give some of the highlights from your report. And then after that, we'll just have a chance for some question and answer, a chance for the board once a year to interact with our directors here at the study session. And of course, directors are always welcome to visit outside of the board meeting. But we'll go in the order that we have here. We have child nutrition is Magdalene Benedicto, and then transportation is Jamie Schmidt, and information technology, Jeremy Cox. So we'll go ahead and give them a chance to do a go around here, just kind of some of the highlights and the work that they've done the past year and what we can look forward to in the upcoming school year. And then we'll have a chance for some informal discussions. So we'll start with child nutrition, Magdalene Benedicto.
Okay, thank you for having me tonight. Just an overview about my department. I have about 40 employees on a full day. So 40 employees, just striving to serve nutritious and appealing meals. New to the school year is the community eligibility provision. So back in March, Washington State passed a House Bill 1878, which means increasing public school participation in community eligibility provision, meaning schools, not districts, that exceed the 40% identified student percentage must participate in USDA's community eligibility provision in the subsequent school year and throughout the next 4-year cycle. So we have 7 schools in our districts that are on CEP that will continue through 2026. What that means is students at that schools are offered meals at no cost. So Atanum, Mountain View, Summit View, White Hollow Elementary Schools, Middle Level Campus, and then Innovation Center all offer meals at no cost. We have 3 schools that are non-CEP, Apple Valley, Cottonwood, and West Valley High School. Fortunately, the board has decided to fund the paid meals for Apple Valley and Cottonwood this school year, so thank you for that. And then West Valley High School did have to proceed and go back to free, reduced, paid. So we continue to receive and process free and reduced meal applications at those 3 schools and for the next 3 years. Some program highlights. Again, we've been working really hard to expand farm to school, really going out there and sourcing local produce from our community. We purchased from all the way from Prosser, Chelan, products from Borton Fruits down in Atanum, Star Ranch down in Wiley City. So really working with farmers, purchasing directly from them. That way we're getting fresh, we're cutting the middleman. They're not sitting in Spokane Produce for long weeks and then coming to our department or our schools. Also, we've been working on bringing in more roasted vegetables. I met with a parent earlier this school year, and she encouraged, hot vegetables on our school menu. So we're doing roasted vegetables each month. If you get a chance to, or each week, if you get a chance to stop by a school lunch, when we have roasted red potatoes, I highly encourage it. It is one of our top items this school year. Also implementing, so this year we've implemented, it's called a fresh fruit and vegetable program. This program is a way to introduce children to a variety of fresh produce in their classrooms. So we deliver to a TANM, Summit View, and White Hollow. So their schools were selected because they have a 50% and above free and reduced rate. And in the afternoons, they serve a snack size fruit or vegetable. We've served star fruit, rambutans, watermelon, radish, you name it. And it's really exciting because, the stories that I hear, actually my kitchen manager, she has a student at a TANM, and maybe the first month he's like, I'm not trying it. I'm not doing this. I don't know what it is. And now it's the one thing that he's really excited about in the afternoons is trying those fruits and vegetables. So again, just introducing these variety of fresh produce. Also increasing homemade quick scratch entrees. Pre-COVID, my whole goal was to increase homemade items in our school lunches to 50%. Currently, we're at 39%, just because, again, coming back from COVID, trying to get all our staff trained, equipments, our broken equipments that we couldn't get repaired during COVID. But again, I want to increase scratch-made items in our lunch menus. Special dietary accommodations, really proud of how we're accommodating students that have special dietary needs. Egg-free, we have an egg-free menu, lactose-free, dairy-free, gluten-free menus just to accommodate so that way they can feel comfortable coming to our schools and eating a school meal with their friends. Again, just monthly newsletters, social media platforms, really highlighting what we do. Unfortunately, we don't get the appreciation, or my staff doesn't get the appreciation they deserve, and they do so much for our students. And we just want to make sure we highlight it. We've been posting things on Facebook and Instagram, and working with Ram Landing on a food drive. So that's happening this month. I'll leave this here. It actually ends this Friday. So working with them, and then local wellness committee. So I've been working with Alyssa Kidder and my coordinator, Kendall Bjerke, in just finding ways to improve the nutrition and the health of our school, not just the students, but also staff. Upcoming projects. So June 2024, we are to remove all foam products from our kitchens. And so we're working on bringing in reusable trays. We have, I think, 6 of our schools already implemented reusable trays. So we have a TANM, White Hollow, Cottonwood, and Innovation Center. It's a little challenging because they have the single door dishwasher, so it's a little time consuming to do those trays, but we'll figure it out. We have plenty of taste testing events coming up. We'll be taste testing in April at the elementary schools, and then we'll be setting up taste testings at the middle school and high school. Again, just getting in the classrooms, meeting with the students, kind of giving them an overview of a program and just testing different things. We're trying plant-based products at our elementary schools next month. So we're really excited to get in there and just really educate them and get their opinions from the students. Let's see, breakfast after the bell. So TANM and Summit View, those 2 schools are required to implement breakfast after the bell, meaning we serve breakfast after the bell. I've been working with Eva and Nick at a TANM to implement this new program. These 2 schools were selected because they do have a 70% free and reduced rate. Revenue, I think we're doing really well as far as revenue and expenditures. Again, the revenue that we receive is the reimbursement of the meals we actually serve, which means participation. Our goal is always to increase participation. That way we can bring in more revenue. And this year, we've definitely exceeded our goals. We're serving about 1,100 average meals per day, which is about 120 meals more than last school year. And we're serving 2,800 average meals per day, which is about 300 more meals than last school year. We've applied for a lot of grants. Farm to School, again, to help expand our Farm to School efforts. Waste Not Washington to help purchase reusable trays and other supplies that comes with it. Plant-based meals grant, we've brought in grab and go at the high school that are more plant-based. We have shaker salads, hummus bowls, things like that that are more plant-based. And then fresh fruit and vegetable program. Expenditures, the only thing that I want to highlight here is, although, we have higher participation, which means more revenue, our food cost, of course, food cost inflation. I was in a meeting today and they said something about 23.8% of food inflation. I'm not exactly sure if it was like from, compared to last year or 12 months ago, but definitely we are impacted on food cost. 22-23, so last school year, we had a $330,000 surplus. Revenue over expenditures. And then as of February, so far, we are at a $30,000 surplus for this financial year. Some program challenges. Again, we're still impacted by some of the COVID things with food shortages, labor shortages, again, increasing food cost. And then I want to bring up negative balances because the high school is at free and reduced paid. A lot of the students didn't know they were either, the meals were, they were paying for the meals because the last 2-3 years, meals were free. And so there's students that have accumulated $300, $200 of negative balances. We can't tell them on this line that, hey, you have a negative balance. Every communication is through the parents. We've sent out robocalls. The IT department's helped us with robocalls, email alerts. We've sent them letters, but we are still at a $5,000 of negative balances. And then, you can read my program goals again, just increasing participation overall. Expanding farm to school efforts, improving social media platforms for promoting our program, and increasing scratch meat items.
All right, thank you. Let's go and move on to Jamie Schmidt for Transportation Department, and then we'll come back and be able to have some question and discussion with the board.
Before Jamie
Sure.
goes, real quick, just for the minutes to reflect accurately, Mr. Mokel is participating tonight via Zoom. He's also watching the live feed. So he is not absent for the meeting, and in accordance with the state law, he is participating in the meeting tonight electronically and can hear us and all that good stuff. So I did want to state that for the accuracy of the minutes, and I will do so again in the regular meeting.
Mhm.
Jamie.
Can we ask questions now before I forget?
Well, we serve at your request here. We just want to make sure that we have time for all the participants, but go ahead, Dave, if you have a question. Sure.
This is just rhetorical, I guess. Are we going to pay for, is this going to pay for the elementary Apple Valley Cottonwood High School so they can get free lunches also? When do we decide that?
Yeah, that's part of the budget making process for the upcoming school year. And then I did have that as part of my notes for the superintendent's report. So we'll give you an update on that at the regular board meeting with the superintendent's report.
How about, do you have trouble finding people to work?
We are. We started with a good amount of subs at the start of the school year, but we've lost several of them, and we have several job openings. We had a job opening last week, and we got one applicant, and we had it out for at least 2 weeks. So yes, it is very difficult to find applicants.
I promise.
That's okay. I have questions too.
You're talking about $85,000 at the high school of non-paid.
5,000.
5,000.
Sorry, 5,000.
5,000. But what are our options on that? Not giving a diploma?
So yes, if it's unpaid, it goes to the fines and fees, and then it follows that protocol where they don't get their diploma. So we'll get a lot of phone calls during spring because they can't get their spring tickets, things like that. So
when we were paying for everybody, we haven't paid for high school, have we?
No.
All right, so that's not an excuse to not being used to it.
Right.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
All right. Well, we'll have time afterwards, but want to give all the directors a chance just to give their overview. So Jamie Schmidt, Transportation.
Thank you for having me tonight. Mine is going to be a little bit more brief. I've got some highlights here. Right now we have an interoffice staff of about 5 people. Myself, our coordinator, Debbie Boyle, our discipline liaison for bus behavior, who's also a sub bus driver and a driver trainer, Michelle Stapleton, our driver trainer and our regular preschool bus driver, Glenda Berry, and our mechanics, Kurt Sweezy and Mike McIntosh. And then we have 35 contracted bus drivers right now. Contracted meaning everybody has their route every day between our gen ed routes, sped routes, and pre-K routes. We have about 8 substitute bus drivers. Our driver trainer, bus driver, Glenda Berry, has successfully trained 11 people this year since January of this last year. Our district is one of the very few districts in the state that has all of our contracted routes filled, let alone a pool of subs to pull from. It's an unbelievable feeling. I'm very fortunate. We're lucky in this district. There's a lot of local districts and statewide, nationwide that are really, really struggling with that. PBIS discipline liaison, our substitute bus driver, new driver trainer, after 2 years of COVID, she finally got we had already paid for her to go to driver training school, Michelle Stapleton, and it was closed down for 2 years. And if you don't have a driver trainer, you don't get drivers trained, you don't have subs. Your drivers that you currently employ don't get updated training, safety training. It makes it really difficult if you don't have certified driver trainers on your staff to continue to grow that base. So we were excited that she's been able to complete that. Our fleet, we have a fleet of 46 buses. As you know from last year, we chose to purchase 4 buses, 2 this year and 2 into next year. And I just found out this week that 2 of our buses are in. It's taken a long time, almost a year. We're hoping 2 of them are at Shetke Northwest, who is our Thomas bus supplier. They're based out of Kennewick. They're being held up a little bit. They're waiting for a particular heater that heats the core of the bus during the winter. And supply and demand with this COVID business, kind of the same thing that you're experiencing, Magdalene. We're waiting on those heaters, and as soon as those are installed, they should be delivered. And then hopefully we'll get the next 2 buses earlier in the year for this next school year. The nice part about that is, well, they're on warranty. We can get them out on the road and really use them and get the quirks and kinks worked out before the warranty's up. That being said, we have a fleet of 46 buses. We have 7 SUVs and 1 car in our district motor pool fleet for teacher, coach use, student use. During our most recent winter inspections with Washington State Patrol, that was January 5th and 6th, our fleet had 0 mechanical defects. That's a big deal. We have newer mechanics, I don't mean new diesel mechanics. They're quite well seasoned, but newer to yellow school bus, which is very different. There's a lot of regulations and standards with OSPI and what those buses have to meet and the requirements of our equipment. And they're doing a fabulous job of keeping that up and running and safe. Funding, last year, to and from transportation, that's how our funding's driven in transportation, is by our student ridership. Don't know if I agree with it, but that's the way the state has depicted it. And last year, our average was 3,214 students. This year, that number we report 3 times a year. And at our first reporting period, we were at 3,402 students. And for our last reporting period, we were at 3,556 students. That's meaning to and from. So we get to count our students, gen ed students, we count both ways, to school and home. And our special ed kids and pre-K kids, we get to count one way. There's a different funding amount for those kids. It's a higher amount, so they get funded differently. We get to count them one way. My goal is to be at 4,200. I don't know if we're going to hit that number. We report May 1st for the last time. Our drivers and myself, we track our kids every single day. We count every single run. Some districts will say, let's just track. This seems to be the longest or highest numbers. Let's track these 2 weeks. I can't do it. I have to do it every day. And then Debbie Boyle helps me with a spreadsheet, and we track those numbers of every single run. And then OSPI has provided a formula that breaks down in a spreadsheet the high, middle, low, and we get to go with the best middle. And they have to be 3 consecutive days. So there's a little trick to it, but we get them all in there, so we make sure that we're doing proper calculations. Pre-COVID, I think our highest number was just over 4,200. So we're getting close, getting really close, and it's come back quick. And it reflected in our state allocation for my program 99. We budgeted at 2.1, right around $2.1 million this year for transportation, and our allocations came in at 2.8. So we're thrilled with that. And those big fat zeros didn't help a couple of years ago. So hopefully this just continues to grow. Just to give you guys an idea, routing bus stops, we have 82 general education bus routes, morning and afternoon combined, 24 special needs bus routes, 8 preschool bus routes, and a total of bus stops in our district is 1,964 stops that we make every day. I don't feel like I can give enough recognition to our staff and my drivers. Our drivers for our district, they care, they're compassionate, hardworking, not recognized nearly enough. I feel like this is kind of my time usually to give them some recognition. They've started a program. Glenda Berry came from, she's our driver trainer, a preschool driver. She's doing a fabulous job. And she and Michelle Stapleton have put together a Superstars Riders. I don't know if you guys remember in my past presentations talking about PBIS on the buses. It's always been a vision of mine to start a program with bus helpers on our gen ed elementary runs, to take some of those students that are deserving and let them be helpers to some of those students who are struggling to maintain positive bus behavior. And it's started. And I just want to end this with showing a little bit of what's been put into this. You guys know that every week we do a bus rider of the week. They get a certificate that the bus driver gives them with a cup. This little cup has our logo, Ram logo on it. You fill it with cold water, it turns colors. It's fun for the kids. So that's their little bus rider of the week. They do that every week for a student on their bus. But then we go to bus rider of the month. They get a certificate that's designed different every month. They get a water bottle with our Superstar Bus Rider Ram logo on it. And they get their picture taken with the bus driver that then gets turned into a collage that goes to the school and gets hung on their cork boards. And this is my staff doing all of this and making this happen for these kids and recognizing the positive behavior. They also, then that picture gets put in a little letter and gets sent to the parents. So I just want to recognize how they're going above and beyond and really trying to give back to these kids. It's not just about the kids that are doing things right. If Johnny is struggling and he's showing improvement, those are the kids that we want to target and really praise for finding the right way of behaving and doing these things. Just to let you know, this Bus Rider of the Month program, they get this little tote, the little helper on the bus. They go through a little process with the bus driver and they get a little name tag with their name. So everybody knows who the helper is on the bus. This bag is filled with different things that we've duplicated, little, whether it's a color, dot to dot, a word maze, whatever it might be. And this little helper sits with the person that's struggling and helps occupy their time. And what it's doing is allowing our drivers to focus on the road and be safe. And that's our number one priority, is the children's and students' safety. We started this out as a trial at Summit View in Apple Valley. And I'm proud to say that we have 12 routes now participating, and we have 53 helpers out on these buses that feel a sense of accomplishment, a sense of belonging. And it is going gangbusters. So I'm excited to come back next year and let you know where this is at. And a lot of this wouldn't be possible. I know I say it every year, but without your guys' support, that is probably the biggest thing for bus drivers, is feeling a lack of support, a lack of recognition. And you don't let us feel that way. Your support is there. Peter always supports us. Joe and Stacy 100% back us up. They'll tell me when I'm wrong and they'll put me in my place if I'm digging my heels in too hard on something, but they're always supportive of our department. You all are, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jamie. And next we have Jeremy Cox, Information Technology.
I promise mine will be a lot shorter than that.
You were just saying I was.
As you can see from my report, I chose to not focus on my department. I focus on what is actually the focus for the IT department. And for us, it's cybersecurity. That's the number one topic in education right now as far as IT world. And it's a big problem, and it's just gotten worse since COVID. Since 2016, there's been 1,331 schools that we know about that have been compromised by a cybersecurity attack. A lot of those are, and those numbers are probably low considering the fact that a lot of people don't actually report them. Some of them don't even know they've been compromised. They may have an incident going on, they have no clue. So my focus is on cybersecurity. One of the main things that we face in cybersecurity in the school district world is we have a lot of sensitive data on a lot of people. We have staff, we have students, we have parents. It's a lot of data we have access to, and a lot of data we have to protect. So some of the things I'm doing and my staff are doing to help mitigate some of the ransomware, phishing attacks, and other malwares is we started doing yearly staff training. Part of that staff training, we have videos that they go through for safe schools. We're going to actually redo them this year and have more direct and relevant information for staff to learn and condense it down to more relevant information. We're also doing anti-phishing campaigns. So every quarter, we're sending out targeted campaigns to staff to see if they click on something. Unfortunately, we have not the best numbers. I'd like to see 1 or 2, not 110 to 75, depending on the campaign. Every month, every time they do it. So every one of those clicks is a potential breach. So we were trying to avoid that and bringing that awareness up. And part of that awareness we're trying to do is we've actually started doing a positive reinforcement. So we're handing out stickers to all the people that properly report the phishing attempts. They're pretty cool stickers. The last one is my favorite. It's one of the high school kids created it in Justin Wright's class. It's an amazing little sticker, but it's hilarious. I'll have to show it to you. And there's one in the back there. So that's some of the things we're doing to help bring that phishing awareness. Phishing is probably the number one method that people are going to get into our network. Some other things that we're looking at doing is multi-factor authentication. Now that's going to be my next project. We've already implemented it for our IT staff, but we're going to start implementing it for the rest of the district. Most likely what we'll do is we'll target people that have been clicking on those phishing alerts. So if they've clicked on it, they'll probably be required to do MFA to help protect our network in our data. And then we'll target other people with sensitive information that have access to it, principals, directors, superintendents, and then we'll go secretaries, and then finally teachers, and then everyone else. So that's the rollout plan. We're looking at probably starting that this summer. Some other things we're doing. We're encrypting all of our laptops and desktops and encrypting all of our servers. So if a data is stolen or a device is stolen, they're not getting data off of it. They'd have to decrypt it and hack into it to get it. So some of the things we're doing there. And then we've also, one of the big things we've done, we removed, and we're still trying to get all those stranglers out there, but we removed all email addresses from the website. If you have email addresses on the website, people can crawl the website, grab a collection of email addresses, and then spam them. So you can actually target your phishing campaigns. And we've had some really successful ones, really sophisticated ones the last few years that cause us to implement that change. So now we have actual forms on our website that people can go through and click on and submit a form, and then that emails the person without them actually having access to the emails. And since we've done that, it's actually dramatically reduced our phishing phishing attacks. So that's really my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
The last description you gave us, Jeremy, on the phishing and where they single out one individual or whatever.
Mhm.
I think in one of my other duties, they call it whaling, because they'll go to a senior administrator or whoever. And it comes up and it looks perfectly legit. They use somebody that you know and are familiar with and all that. And then by the time you go through it, you've had malware established and they've gotten information that they're not intended to receive, if you will.
Oh.
And it's really hard, but that's the, are you experiencing much of that?
Not since we've removed removed emails from the website. Before we did that, we had an incident at one of our schools where somebody sent a really good email that looked like a principal and asked, "Hey, are you there? Hey, are you available?" The person replied to it. And after a few emails, the target actually purchased gift cards and gave them the gift cards. So they lost some money on that one. So that was the last time we removed all the emails off the website. So that was one of the actions we took to stop that from happening, or help prevent that from happening at least.
As far as for Jeremy and Jamie, you said you bought 2 buses. Are you on schedule?
We're on great schedule. We actually bought 4 buses, two in this budget year, and we already have on order our 2 buses for next year. So we're well on schedule. I am not going to scrap any buses or get rid of anything this year. We're running on a pretty lean fleet, which is a good thing. You want to get rid of those buses when they're done and off of depreciation and purchase your new buses. That's what builds your transportation vehicle fund. But we've gotten rid of quite a few, and it makes me a little nervous that if we have breakdowns that we're not gonna, I want to make sure we have enough equipment on the lot.
What do you mean by yellow school bus
Yellow school bus.
mechanics?
There's a difference between what the state requires of, say, a motor coach that's being chartered and how they keep their equipment, and what the state requires them and how they require them to keep their equipment, versus what Washington State Patrol, OSPI, and just the state, the regulations that they have on buses and the things that they have to have and what puts a bus out of service are far different than anything else. School buses is highly scrutinized.
So it's a higher expectation.
Much higher, all the way from clearance lights to if your windshield wiper's broken, it puts your bus out of service. I mean, it's very, very detailed, and they go through your bus and your brakes and your engine and everything underneath that bus gets gone through by State Patrol. They go through all the way down to our bus pouches. There was a pair of scissors in one of the bus pouches from a student. The pouch is behind the driver's seat, and that bus was put out of service because those scissors were in that pouch. So it's just a different set of standards that we have to uphold for that yellow bus.
Jerry, where are you at on our computer? We are always improving or buying or selling or updating computers. Where are we at? Are we staying up to date?
We are staying up to date. I'm looking at probably the year after next to start replenishing the computers that we bought 7 years ago. So we're still on that path. Keeping on it.
Is the freshman center students helping out? Isn't that where we got some, or is it your junior high where they're actually training the kids to?
That's the goal. We've had them, we've provided, my IT staff has provided training for students to learn how to repair Chromebooks, but we haven't fully implemented that. We're still work in progress. It really depended on the teachers and them getting their curriculum ready and getting that whole thing worked out. As far as we're concerned, we're ready for it, but we're kind of waiting on them to get that going.
Is that the freshman center or is that the junior high?
It's ICE, Innovation Center.
innovations.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay.
I have a question about the nutrition. Listening to I'm really happy to hear about the Farm to School program. I think just by the sound of it, it's a wonderful reciprocal arrangement we have with our local community. So I want to point it out first. I think that's a great idea, great use of local resources perhaps. My real question is, do we save much money on that at all? You kind of mentioned that there might be, but
It depends, purchasing from a direct vendor,
cut
they
the
don't
middle-
do the
yeah.
pre-washing and things like that. So it does increase a little bit of our labor. But so far we've been able to work with, and that's a great thing about working directly with these farmers is, hey, if we buy this bulk amount, can we get the discount or can I get it at this price? So ultimately, yes, we do save.
And is this the first year we've been doing this, started this, or have we been doing this all along?
I've started at a smaller scale, bringing in harvest of the month and bringing in those, once a month produce. But now it's just really consistent. Just, it's hard to find the connection. I'm a farmer my parents are farmers, not me, and down in the Lower Valley. And so I know a lot of farmers down in the Lower Valley, but actually, connecting with them and bringing the amount that we bring into our schools is a little difficult for them. And of course, we can't go out and bring in some of those produce. So we worked a lot with WSDA, WASDA, in connecting with some of the other farmers out there, Chelan County. But again, it's just developing those connections. And throughout the years, I've been able to connect with a lot of the farmers.
And one last question, do you foresee this program kind of expanding in the future, or do you think we're at a point where
Absolutely.
okay.
No, there's still a lot of opportunity to connect with farmers. So if you know any farmers or local distributors, I am more than happy to, connect with them and bring some of those produce in.
Okay. Thank you.
Imagine as far as, supplies,
Mhm.
have you found that, what is it, inflation or shrinkflation that's creating a problem where you're paying more for a smaller box?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yes, you can call it that. I know all the way from chicken product, the demand is high, of course, but there's no chickens I don't think it's really the chickens. There's no people in the facilities to make our chicken nuggets or our
Right, process.
chicken patties. Yeah, the manufacturing facilities. So
And Jamie, on the PBIS thing with your bus drivers, I would suggest that we do something in our newsletters or whatever to put out accolades to those folks,
Mhm.
because with the examples you gave us of what they're doing and showed us that they're doing on the buses with the kids and the helpers and all the other things, probably as far, I've been to a lot of conferences on PBIS. And that's one of the most, I would think, productive examples that I've seen at any of them.
Thank you. I would like to maybe towards the end of the school year, do something to recognize the drivers that are participating in that, but also the riders. And what we're talking about as a group of doing is maybe a Root Your Float Day at their school, maybe a bus ride to Meadowbrook Fun Center. There's different things that I've seen done in the past. I came from a district prior to West Valley that had started a program for PBIS bus riders, and it was very successful. And the director that I worked under started that program there with Glenda Berry. So this kind of goes back, and she brought it to us. And I've watched Debbie Heidi, a director formerly from SELA, who was one of my mentors, take it to Lake Stevens, where it's just gone gangbusters. They have over 200 riders, bus rider helpers, and everybody is striving to become one of these, and we set a standard and expectation of behavior and it just tenfolds. And the bottom line is that it's about the safety of the kids. It's not about recognizing all these kids that are doing great things, which it is doing. You're killing two birds with one stone, but it's being able to have that driver focus on the roads. And, it's different than a classroom. You've got 70 kids behind you with a 4-inch by 24-inch mirror to manage them while you're driving on the road. And we don't get the luxury or have the luxury of having bus monitors to help monitor that behavior. So it's really a helpful tool. And I think the lessons that it's teaching those kids along the way is pretty powerful too.
Is PBIS voluntary? I mean, not all bus drivers.
Not yet. Right now it's voluntary, and I've got drivers that come to me and say, I don't need a helper. I don't have any problems with kids on my bus. It's not always about the driver. It's about that sub driver that's coming on their bus that may need help. Just alone finding all those stops out on Cottonwood Canyon Road that are all addresses, and they're new to that route. And that little helper that gets off towards the end of the route can say, hey, I can help you. It's coming up here. Yes, the driver's driving the bus, but any input or help that they can have along the way is helpful. And so some of these drivers, and I just had one this week that told me, I don't really have any problems with my kids. And we talked to her about the sub, and now she's got a couple little helpers as of this week. And she came back and she said, this is awesome. It's awesome. And to listen to what I've been trying to do is get drivers to encourage them to speak about the positiveness in our staff meetings that we have once a month. So these other drivers that maybe aren't buying in yet can see the benefits, and it's working. And
What percentage?
they'll figure that part out.
What percentage of your drivers are doing PBIS?
Right now, out of 21 regular ed routes, I've got 12 drivers that are participating, and 53 riders as of today that are participating in that. And then we have our sped drivers who participate in a different way, recognizing those kids, taking the pictures, doing the certificates. And I don't care if they have 5 kids on their bus, they're recognizing those kids. And it's a pretty powerful testimony to see that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I have lots of questions. Sorry. I have questions for each, not lots, I shouldn't say that. Questions for each one of you, and hopefully they're not too difficult. Magdalene, first I'll start with you. Breakfast after the bell, can you describe that? Is that literally what it means? So at 8:55 when school starts at the elementary schools, this is a program to provide breakfast after the start of the school day?
Yes. So I've been doing my research the last month or so, and I've been visiting some schools. So what Eva and Nick and I have decided on is continue our traditional breakfast. So the students that are dropped off early on the school bus, can still go into the kitchen and get their meals. And then students, so the whole intention for this program is to increase participation, and students, that are dropped off right at the bell ring, for the most of the part, they're sent straight to their classroom. So for those students, they still have an additional 10 to 15 minutes after the bell to get a meal. And Eva she's very supportive as far as student nutrition. And I know she sends the students to the kitchen regardless if it's, 5 minutes after the bell to make sure, because it really helps them out throughout the day.
Okay.
Mhm.
I assume that's
It's
what
exactly
what it meant. I was just making sure. Then in the regular board meeting packet that's delivered to the board, we get a variety of reports from all the schools, and actually just out of coincidence, the high school ASB class sends us a report.
Mhm.
And let me read to you a portion of that. It says, we partnered with Child Nutrition for a Touch of Class lunch, And then below, there's a little bit more, and I'll read to you what was written. Touch of Class features an upgraded menu created and prepared by our child nutrition team. The food was so much better than the usual menu, and that we actually ran out of food. Over 100 students needed a backup plan, and we wanted to recognize our high school kitchen staff for helping out. But this brings up the real issue for our student body, which is if we can make food like that, food for our students that they really want to eat, why can't we do that more often or all of the time? Why only twice a year? We realize that there are guidelines and budgets to consider, but child nutrition proved that they can do it. So maybe you, putting you on the spot, maybe your response to all of that.
Yeah, so that's why it's only done once or twice a year, because it's usually out of the traditional. It's still in compliance. So this year we're allowed to do, what is it, 80% non-whole grain rich. So we spoiled them with not regular enriched pasta, and then the two different sauces, Alfredo and marinara. But that day, if you want to see saturated fat and sodium levels, I can definitely share that with you. But because that one day we had to really cut back on the sodium calorie limits for the rest of the week. So for USDA's meal pattern, they look at weekly ranges for calories, sodium, and saturated fat. And right now, there's a new proposal with USDA in decreasing sodium even more, which is their target 2. So it's really hard for us to serve, those type of items.
Can you
What's that?
You can't do that every day.
No, we can't. So
Can you-
within a week, we're able to kind
Yeah.
of spread it out. One day, it's a heavy sodium, like you can imagine.
Can you share a little more about the taste test? Because I know in the past that was really well received by students, and with COVID, of course, we weren't able to do that. But I know that you're starting that back up again. Just what does that look like for
So
student participation?
Yeah, so taste testing. So we have April 17th to the 21st. We have 3 schools that we send out an invitation. Hey, if you're interested, we'd love to come into your classroom. And so we have, I believe, Apple Valley, Cottonwood, and White Hollow. We go into their classroom. We prepare 4 different items. We have a plant-based tofu pudding. I promise you it tastes just like regular pudding. We have a breakfast item. We call it the monkey bread. So breakfast, the nutritional guidelines are a little, as a registered dietitian, I don't agree with it. It's more grain-based pastries and things like that. So we're trying to incorporate more protein into our menus. And so we're doing a casserole with sausage, eggs, and biscuit. And then we're also doing a curry sauce that will go over chicken. And what's the other one? A shepherd's pie. So really diving in and, and then this gives us the opportunity to talk to the students. What do you guys want to see? We've done surveys, and it's a typical, I want pizza, chicken nuggets, popcorn chicken. But really, I want to be able to get in front of the students and really ask, what's your favorite homemade meal? That's not fast food. Something that you really enjoy that your mom and dad makes, or, that kind of thing. And it really opens up discussion. And I look forward to, especially talking to the high school students. I'll be doing that in May. Thankfully, I have a dietetic intern from Central Washington University that will be assisting me, and also with my coordinator, Kendall Birkey. I just want to mention her. She's been amazing. She's my first child nutrition coordinator. She started this year, and her creativity, she does all the newsletters. I mean, this is some of her work. So right now we're highlighting National Nutrition Month. So she sends out weekly newsletters. So she's just amazing. And that's part of the reason why we're able to work on farm to school, homemade items, taste testings.
Very good. Yeah, no, I just back to the Touch of Class menu. I look at this as mainly a kudos, and it sounds like there just needs to be in it. You're gonna do this.
Yes.
Just kind of
More
an
often.
education. Well, just an education piece as to, yes, we would love to do this more often, but there are some other things that there are other guidelines that unfortunately preclude us from doing that all the time. So, we've got about 11 minutes left, and hopefully these are rapid fire, not quite as involved questions. So first for Jamie, what's a typical school bus warranty for a brand new school bus?
Usually it's 1 year, and where they get you is, it's 1 year, not when they deliver it to you, when they, like Shetke's got our buses right now, that warranty's already started.
Oh, once
So,
it's delivered to the
out of the factory.
yeah.
So, one thing that we're going to do this year is, it's a 5-year warranty, bumper to bumper.
Mhm.
It's a new offering, and we're going to be able to get that for these new buses. It's a minimal fee. I can't, don't quote me. I think it's like, I want to say it was like $3,700 per bus. Well worth it. When you see things, I'm disappointed. They don't make things like they used to. There's, two main vendors to choose buses from, Bluebird and Thomas. Things are not made like they used to make them,
Right.
and they get you any way they can. I mean, there's things we're figuring out. There's things that are run off of air, and there's things that are run off of motor. So we're trying to eliminate one or the other, whichever we're seeing that has the most problem, and trying different things to fix that, and get longevity. But I really, really am working at getting the warranty added. And I talked to our vendor from Shetke a couple weeks ago, had a meeting with him, and he said that with these 2 new buses, we should be able to add on that 5-year warranty, and it will save us thousands. A lot of what I'm seeing is it'll run out of warranty, and 3 weeks later, something major will happen with this piece of equipment. And they're not standing behind their product. 3 weeks to me, when it sits over summer, when it sits at Christmas break, I feel like those times should be taken into consideration. When they deliver us a bus in May, and we're not going to drive it for 8 weeks however long it sits during summer vacation, if it's not being used for summer school, that's not, to me, not real fair. We should be getting those buses at the beginning of our school year so that they can get on the road and get used. And with the delay of product because of COVID, that we're just thankful to be able to get a bus at this point. Hopefully the year 2024 school year, we'll get those 2 new buses at the beginning of the year.
Great. Next question. You mentioned that the ridership is up, and some goals that you have for that. So a little over 3,500 in the second reporting period. How do those numbers compare with pre-pandemic?
I think our highest reporting period was and this is hard because we went from our highest recording was 40, like right around 4,200
before COVID.
And then COVID hit, and we went to 0.
Mm-hmm.
So our district never really got the compensation that we should have for those numbers because we went to a flat 0.
Mm-hmm.
We were one of the first districts in our, this is probably for everything. We came back fast,
right,
compared to most districts because of the schedule that we chose.
Mm-hmm.
It was ever changing and on a dime. I mean, we had, if you remember, we started with certain groups, then we were last names, then we were like these 3 days, these kids will go those 2 days. So, I mean, and that for routing is craziness because everything changes for those stops for those kids. But it did wonders for our ridership because we came back strong and fast.
Right.
I think we lost a large number. I try to say, where are those 600 kids that we're missing? Where are those 800 kids? I think a lot of it is Virtual Academy is doing so well. I see I see those numbers, and I get noticed when a student is coming out of West Valley and going to Virtual Academy, so that I can remove them from the bus stop and keep those things current. And I think that's where we're missing a lot of those kids. But there's so much growth in our district as well that I'm sure we'll figure out how to recover that.
Okay.
I see us just continuously growing, and it's not been at a huge rate, but it's manageable.
Great. it's like 6 minutes before 7. And I don't normally have my cell phone out. So for those of you who are like, why is Thorner on his iPhone during the middle of y'all talking? It's because Mr. Mokel is texting me so again, it's not typical and I'm not normally on my phone, but again, Mr. Mokel is. So I'll ask, I had one question for Jeremy, which I will email you about later. It's not critical. But I will ask Mr. Mokel's question, and this is for Magdalene. How often is child nutrition, and he's got 2. How often is child nutrition changing the recipe on items? His kids say that foods change flavors from time to time.
That comes with supply chain shortages. So we get deliveries from US Foods on Wednesdays, and sometimes we won't find out until we get a different chicken patty on that Wednesday. So yes.
Okay.
We're still seeing quite a bit of that, going from Tyson's to Gold Kist, different manufacturers for different items, pizzas, chicken nuggets. So yes.
Okay. Second question was, do you anticipate grants and other funding sources to roll over to next year?
There's some grants that we can apply for. So the grants that we have right now are for the end of this school year. There are like the freshman vegetable or the farm to school program. We can reapply for next school year. So, it just depends if we decide to reapply.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for listening to all of our really. Go ahead.
One for each, real quick. Less than 2 minutes each. What's your greatest need from us?
I'm going to say this. I think it's recognition of the staff that does the work. I feel that we don't see faces down where we're at, maybe once a year, if that. My drivers deserve to be recognized. I think I can say the same for every.
And that was the first thought that came to my
It's not about
mind.
me, it's about my staff. That they're the ones getting out there and getting dirty every single day, and they do this job and they take pride in what they do, and those kids are their kids. And I just kind of feel like sometimes we are by the wayside and not, I feel supported because I reach out to my boss or Peter and I have those conversations and they listen and they advise and I grow. But my staff doesn't get that, very rarely, and it's disheartening. I would like to see all of the staff that is doing that type of work for operations get a little bit more recognition.
Thank you.
I couldn't say it any better. That was the first thought that came to my mind. Again, recognizing our staff. They're the one that makes it happen. I can take a whole 2 weeks off, but they will keep it going without me.
Right. Well, not just because you said that, but literally in my notes at the end, I wanted to say, kind of in closing for the study session, that your 3 departments and the people that work in those departments are one of the many logistical things that it takes to pull off school every day. And that deserves and commands our respect and our appreciation, because there are 3 important things that go on in all of your departments that support safety of our students, health of our students, and learning of our students. And without your department's facilities, it's a cast of many to make school happen every day. So thank you for the work that you lead. Thank you for all of your staffs, and thanks for listening and putting up with our questions.
Could I just add something?
Yeah.
I would probably add to that, to their 2 comments. I would say support. Not that you don't support us, but continued support. I think that's
Right.
a big piece.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Oh,
You have meetings every month. You kind of remind us because we're old. So,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
set
that's
mine
it.
in your advance, so I'll send you a
all
schedule.
right. If we know we might make it to one.
That would be awesome.
okay. Well, that is going to conclude the study session. And the regular school board meeting is scheduled to start at the top of the hour, but I'd like to push that back to 5 minutes after 7. So 5-minute recess and we'll jump right into it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks for bearing with us for 5 minutes. I'll call the regular school board meeting to order on Tuesday, March 28th. And we will call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance again. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, as I said in the study session, but I'll say it again. Mr. Mokel is participating in tonight's school board meeting via Zoom, and he can hear and see all of us. So he does not need to be excused. He had a minor procedure done today, but he is able to participate by Zoom. Also, normally I put my phone away and put it on Do Not Disturb, but tonight, if he has something that he wants to ask, or he can raise his hand on Zoom, but he might text me. So that's what I'm looking at if in fact I'm looking at my phone. So I apologize in advance. I normally would not do that, but trying to do the best that I can tonight. So appreciate your consideration and bearing with me. Item 4, changes to the agenda.
No changes.
Communications.
We have 2 communications. First is response to public comment. At the school board meeting on March 14th, the parent requested that the district install more security cameras at the middle school, and a parent expressed concerns about the sexual health curriculum for 5th grade. Regarding security cameras, the middle school administration has met with staff from our information technology department to review the feasibility of adding more security cameras to the common areas of each wing at the middle school. In addition to cameras, there may be a need to increase our network capacity. Our staff will continue to work on the feasibility of adding security cameras to the middle school. Regarding sexual health, the sexual health curriculum is called Family Life and Sexual Health Flash, which is aligned to the standards for sexual health. In accordance with state law, the district provides instruction at 5th grade. Each school communicates with parents and provides them the opportunity to preview the curriculum. Parents have the option to opt out. Next is the Asset Prevention Program. So annually, there needs to be a report to the board regarding the Building Condition Assessment Report. This is in regards to WAC 392-347-023. And so the communication is the assessment of the high school, and that the high school has a good rating of 90%, and that this communication to the board fulfills the WAC requirement. So there was additional information in the board packet, but just wanted to share that this fulfills the WAC requirement for an annual report. And that concludes communications.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Finch. Item 6, program presentations.
Okay, this evening we're going to have a presentation about our family engagement and migrant education. Minerva Pardo will present, and then we will also have a presentation about students experiencing homelessness. We have Geraldine Ashbaugh and Jill Hendricks will present regarding that. These both have PowerPoint presentations that we want to see on the big screen, so we're going to ask the school board to join the audience, and then we'll start with Minerva Pardo.
Hey. Thank you. Hi. Good evening, everybody. This is my second Canva PowerPoint creation, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I did when I created it. My intention was to show a picture of my great staff, which consists of Jasmine Stools. She's our family engagement specialist. She's in charge of doing a lot of the translation and taking all the phone calls from Spanish-speaking families. She's amazing. And we have Michael Garza. He's our family engagement specialist, as well as our migrant program recruiter and student advocate for the migrant program. Our value statement as our department is West Valley Family Engagement Team strives for an equal and equitable partnership among families, educators, and community partners to promote children's learning and development from 1 year old to college and career. Having that in mind, we believe that if students and families feel equal and culturally supported, heard, and seen, then student success is attainable and unavoidable. We have an action plan with the following strategies, and that is to sustain family engagement preschool programs, to improve adult education classes, to better equip staff with professional development, to host cultural events, and to link family to community resources, as well as to improve our family school communication. As for the family engagement preschool programs, we continue with our Kaleidoscope Play and Learn license. We are no longer working with Catholic charities as years before. So now we have our own license, which has given us a lot of benefits, which include, for example, the professional development for 2 new facilitators. That was something new. We are having our own ASQ, and we bought the license for online ASQ screening, which means ages and stages questionnaires. We continue with our Parent-Child Plus program, and we are also continuing with our kindergarten readiness program for migrant and ELL students. This year, we're serving 12 students in that program. As for the family engagement preschool program, Parent-Child Plus, one of the benefits of having students funded by Title I and DCYF is that we can link those children and families to services. And some of those referrals were to early childhood services, to food and nutrition services, healthcare and other health services, housing assistance, immigration support services, and other services such as ramp landing and community resources. Kaleidoscope Play and Learn has increased the number of attendance. At the beginning of the school year, we had a not very well attended group at White Hollow and Mountain View, and now we have all of the groups with a minimum of 5 families attending each group. We have to remember as well, though, that, for example, the month of November, we had only 1 session due to Thanksgiving and it was another holiday. Veterans Day. Yes, thank you. And you can see pictures of, these are pictures of this year, and we always have very busy classes. Our preschool program, and that is Michael Garza right there, teaching parents how to teach those children to get ready for school. Sometimes language can be the first obstacle, but when we have students that receive support from my team and they receive some strategies on how to help their children with literacy, math, social emotional learning, as well as STEM, well, we are better equipping our children to start kindergarten. For adult education, we continue with English classes for adults. We have 2 groups now because now I have my team also providing English classes. So Monday and Tuesday, we have English classes for beginners. And Wednesday and Thursday, we have English classes for non-beginners. I call them intermediate, but they're not. I mean, all of them are not really beginners. This year, at the beginning of the school year, we also partnered with La Casa Hogar, and we were able to provide some professional development on strategies to teach English as a foreign language. At the beginning of the school year, we also had computer class for adults, for English-speaking families, as well as for Spanish-speaking families. And we continue with the citizenship study sessions. We are not helping families fill out any forms. We're just studying together. And I'm happy to say that now we have 2 successful stories. 2 of the parents that were attending this class became citizens. We have the Plazas Comunitarias, and that is the new program that we have, which supports adults that didn't finish elementary school or secundaria, which would be up to 8th grade, to finish those programs in Spanish. And then we have a partnership with OIC that helps them get the GED in Spanish. When we support our parents, we are supporting our students. When our parents can be better equipped to help their children with learning, with reading, with math, then we are doing something for our students. When I wrote this report, we had 16 students. 2 of those were in alfabetización, which would be literacy level, the very beginning. And we had 12 elementary school students and 3 middle level, which is secundaria. Right now we have 20. Professional development, my staff has received 2 professional development trainings that have equipped them to understand how to support families, which is the Strengthening Families Protective Factors framework. They are putting into practice the 5 protective factors. And they also receive another training from the Emerging Wisdom. And that is the name of the organization. And they provide a training called the Calm and Connected Toolkit. And this is helping us with tools to become trusted adults for teenagers. Let's remember that Michael Garza does a lot of work with secondary students. So this is a very powerful tool. We continue having a lot of cultural events. Our Ballet Folclórico continues being one of the after-school classes, and we are very popular in the ballet. We have been in several events, and it's so wonderful. We were Yakima Morelia Sisterhood. They invited us to be part of their Dia de Muertos celebration at the mall, and we had our dancers perform, and it was awesome. Some parents were reaching out to me and saying, "I want my daughter to be part of that team," and I said, "Well, you have to be in West Valley." Then we also had a group of Aztec dancers come to the high school, and they performed, and they had also a good activity making some flutes with children. They're made of clay. It was really fun. We're having multilingual family nights. We are working with those students that are still learning the language and building trust, talking about the importance of that bilingual brain and how that bilingual brain works. This last multilingual night, we had a group of students answering questions to those students that are still in the classroom. Those two of those students had graduated from West Valley, and they talked about their challenges, but also the strategies that helped them succeed and graduate. So it was a very good experience. And now we are preparing for the Multicultural Family Night that's going to take place in May. We believe that linking families to services in the community is essential, and we are providing support. This year, we included 2 new things. One is due to the fact that we don't have any more the hotspots for our families. We realize that our families need still to, have access to Wi-Fi, but there is the ACP program. When we checked how to apply and how to make sure that they were eligible for the program, it was a pretty lengthy and confusing program and process. So we opened 2 nights to help families apply. And then when they receive the letter in the mail, in an email, then they can go to any provider and they can get significant discounts. We had a couple of families that qualified for free internet, actually. And most of them were like, if they were paying $40 a month, they got a $10 bill instead because of these program. We're also helping families, connecting them to insurance plans. Sometimes our families are uninsured. And for example, Plaza Comunitaria, we have some families who cannot read their books to study because they don't have glasses. So we're looking for options to help them with glasses. Funny thing, this last weekend, we learned that Mexican Council can also provide glasses for those parents. So we're going to be hosting another health event for families so they can have extra support. Communication. I am also really happy. You can see right here. Now you can go to any website, any of our websites, the district or each building, and they have the phone number that says Español. So it's only one phone number. They don't have to call what is Jasmine's phone number? What is Michael's phone number? What is Minerva's phone number? We have only one number, and 4 different phones ring at the same time, and we picked it up. So I'm always the one that counts 3 times ringing. They're not available. I pick up. But we always have someone picking that phone up. We also have West Valley Family Connection. Anybody can submit a document for translation, or if they have been using Google Translate, they can send that document for us to proofread and make sure that it's accurate. We continue using Remind for Spanish-speaking families, for migrant families as well. And we continue the services with Language Line Solution. It has been very interesting to see that our Chinese families are receiving an interpreter and a phone call in Chinese if needed, or any other language. So that is a wonderful way to connect with all our families in the district. And of course, I cannot ignore that we have Conferences Week, and scheduling conferences for all our Spanish-speaking families. It's a huge thing. We are probably providing close to 300 conferences during this week. And we have all this bilingual staff going from one 20-minute conference to the other. And they start at 1 and they finish sometimes at 6 or 7. Of course, they have a break. Important. And then this was the 3rd year for West Valley to be part of the Flamboyant cohort. Flamboyant Foundation, they are based in Washington, D.C., and they provide professional development and support and guidance for implementation of family engagement. And there I am with Stacy Drake. We went to D.C. for our last convening. That is our coach. I also had the fortune, and you don't see that picture, but I don't like pictures. So believe me, I just probably have these only 3 pictures. I don't like having selfies, but I was like that lady. She wrote the book Everyone Wins, which is amazing strategies for family engagement. Her name is Ann Henderson, and I said, you know what? My husband just loves heavy metal, and one day he was just so happy because he had a picture with Gene Simmons, okay? And he was like, I got a picture with him. And I told her, you know what? You are my Gene Simmons because I'm having a picture with you. The book is amazing. And then we have at the bottom, we have the Deputy Director for Community Engagement and Innovation for the National Head Start Association. And we are we're part of the leadership team for ASA, and doing great work nationally for family engagement. So I'm really excited about that work as well. And there you go. One great thing that has happened this year is I'm working with Summit View, White Hollow, Attanum, and Mountain View, and we have been conducting community cafes. What that means is you can see a picture right there. We have Michael, in case there was a Spanish-speaking parent in the room, and he was helping communicate, but we're just having sessions where we're listening to the parents. We're listening to parents. What are the successful stories? What are our needs? And what do you think you can do to help the school improve? It was great conversations with parents, and we are happy that now we're going to be collaborating a lot more with different schools, building family engagement strategies. And finally, the migrant program. The migrant program, when Michael started, we had 70-something, I can't remember exactly, migrant students identified in the program. Right now, we have close to 220 students identified as migrant. And that is really cool because that means we can provide more support to those families that are in migratory conditions. I want to make an emphasis that migrant student is not only Spanish speaking. We have a lot of Native American. We have a lot of people that work in, for example, timber or fishing, and they qualify for migrant program support. So this is a program that has been growing significantly. One of the greatest things we can do is credit retrieval. Michael has been conducting or supporting students with the PASS classes. We have 2 students that are doing PASS. PASS is a class. It's a program that we can provide the class to the student, and we have a one-on-one support, and the student gets credit for that class. We're also organizing a mental health event on May 5th, and that is a full day of activities for students to help with strategies for self-regulation and, talk about anxiety, talk about not feeling okay, and that it's okay we're not feeling okay. In the summer, we're going to have our migrant summer home visiting program, and I misspelled visiting. And that is going to provide support to our K-8 students on literacy. But this is a huge focus on family engagement. And that means how can we bring tools that are culturally relevant for those families, and how can they help their children at home improve on literacy? And we will continue grades 9 to 12 with past classes, and Michael is going to be doing home visits, just checking that students are doing the work. We also have a group of high school students being part of the leadership committee with ESD. And this year, Michael also brought YVC with sharing the information about CAMP. CAMP is the College Assistance for Migrant Program. And we also had the first WVSD night for our students, and looking for ways to support them and complete this big requirement that can take them to after-school education. And partnering with Yakima Valley Partners for Education, we're receiving support. And on April the 19th, we are hosting a huge night for families to understand and receive support on education. So it's going to be computer classes for adults, information about La Plaza Comunitaria, information about taxes, information about anything they need to know in order to complete those FAFSA requirements. Sometimes the challenge is, I don't know how to use a computer, so let's work on that. Sometimes the challenge is, I'm behind on my taxes. Let's work on that. So we're trying to identify all the possible challenges and help them and bring some support. This is a program that has been very successful in other school districts, such as Mapton and Grandview, and West Valley is going to be bringing that through Yakima Valley Partners for Education. And that chart just represents the growth on our migrant population. And last Saturday, we had a very, very successful Feria de Liderazgo. That was a resource fair. We partnered with all those groups, WorkSource, Yakima Valley College, Radio KDNA, EPIC, Yakima Morelia Sisterhood. The Mexican Council also came, and they shared a lot of information. We had OIC, NAMI, People for People, Northwest Harvest. It was really well attended. We had more than 100 people attending, and it was really great to hear Peter again giving the welcoming in Spanish. And one parent came to me and said, well, I remember the first event, Peter just read from one piece of paper. This year, he brought 4 pieces of paper. So that was really great. And we had 6 breakout sessions, and it was a really successful event. And thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, tell me why we've increased from 70 to 217 migrant kids?
Because now there is intentional recruiting.
The kids were already here.
Yes, they were not identified before.
So we're not seeing a big influx.
Probably the only thing that is happening is that now we have a more intentional recruiting process, and we can see those numbers increasing. Okay, thank you.
I worry about Michael.
You worry about Michael?
I don't know who Michael is.
He was going to be here today, but he's finishing his last conference
Don't wear him
that
out.
started at 1. And I said, Michael,
Don't wear him out. My point is, don't wear him out.
yeah, I'm going to try. But you know what the problem with that kid is? When I say, hey, Mike, we're going to do this. And he always says, I'm not afraid of working. And so that's great. And Jasmine says the same thing. So I don't know. I have great staff.
Thank you, Minerva. Okay, I'm Geraldine Ashbaugh. Thank you for having me. I have to apologize in advance as I created this presentation on my MacBook, and it has 8 seconds on each slide, and then it advances. So I may be going back and forth, so I apologize for that. So I'm here today to talk about students experiencing homelessness. Let me get on the presentation slide. Here we go. See, this is going to be a problem. Identifying and serving students experiencing homelessness. In West Valley School District, that is called the McKinney-Vento program. So this is our presentation around that. The McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act is the education act in which it's a federal law that ensures immediate enrollment and educational stability for students experiencing homelessness. McKinney-Vento provides federal funding to states for the purpose of supporting district programs that serve homeless students. The Title 10 Part C of the No Child Left Behind Act states that each state educational agency shall ensure that each child of a homeless individual and each homeless youth has equal access to the same free, appropriate education, including a public preschool education, as provided to other children and youth. Maybe I'm going to be okay. The Act provides legal protection so that children and youth can enroll in and attend and succeed in school and preschool programs. And here's the definition of homeless children and youth. The term homeless children and youth means individuals who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence and are doubled up in living with relatives due to some sort of economical hardship. They might be living in RV parks, campers, trailers, abandoned in hospitals. They might live on the street or in a car, in a shelter that is not adequate for living, at a motel, or they may also be a migratory student who is living in any of those above conditions. Unaccompanied homeless youth are students who are not living with their legal parent or guardians. One of the myths about unaccompanied homeless youth is that they are always high school age students, and that is not always the case. Unaccompanied homeless youth can be of any age. So why should we focus on students experiencing homelessness? Students who experience homelessness, if they move, it takes them 4 to 6 months to get that educational stability back. They might have a lack of community. Oh, there we go. Lack of community involvement. They might seek out or find trouble a little bit more easily, and then often do not participate in extracurricular activities, which we know are shows that that tie to that extracurricular is good for their academics and their social emotional. And I left my notes back at my table. Also, we want to look at students. I'm good, thank you. I'll just go ahead and wing it. Students experiencing homelessness. It's good for the teachers to know about their families or their students who are in these situations in order to look at providing appropriate interventions for those students, and just knowing those students a little bit more and what they need in order to be successful. So McKinney-Vento, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act ensures that students have access to immediate enrollment. So this means if they don't have their immunizations, their shot records, their proper paperwork to enroll, that we are indeed ensuring immediate enrollment so those students can get into school right away and have access to education without delay. Other requirements of the Act is that students are entitled to remain in their school of origin. So the school in which they were attending when they were permanently housed is their school of origin. So they're able to stay at that school of origin in which they were last enrolled, as long as that is feasible. For example, if they are, living in Tri-Cities, it would not be feasible for them to continue to go to Tri-Cities if they've moved to West Valley. So best interest determinations are made, and we're always looking at priority given to the parent as long as that is feasible for the student. Eligible students will be transported to and from their school of origin and their home. Students may enroll in their neighborhood school of their temporary residence if they so desire. So if a student moves from East Valley to West Valley and they choose to and they're doubled up or due to economic hardship, and they choose to attend West Valley, then they can attend West Valley. It would be feasible, though, to transport them to East Valley if that was their choice. Priority, again, is given to the families. Requirements of the McKinney-Vento Act: eligible students are entitled to all of the same services that all other students are entitled to, including Title I, special education, highly capable programs, transitional bilingual. That goes to be said with like extracurricular activities, athletics, band, choir, all of those things. Any program that a basic ed student is entitled to, a McKinney-Vento student is also a basic ed student. They are also entitled to that program. McKinney-Vento students are eligible and automatically enrolled in the free and reduced program and receive free meals. So we work closely with our child nutrition department to ensure that they're aware of new students who qualify. Lots of different reasons as to why students are homeless or experiencing homelessness. You might have unemployment or loss of job, underemployment or working for minimum wage, seasonal or temporary jobs, natural and or other disasters, which thankfully we don't have as much of as some other states. Family change such as divorce, separation, or death, health problems, domestic violence. Sorry about that. Physical, sexual, or emotional abuse or neglect, and deep poverty. In West Valley, I've seen all of these as being reasons for students who have qualified for our program. So just a pause just a little bit. The one slide I didn't add in here was our number of McKinney-Vento students. In 2019, 2020, we had 34 students who we had identified as McKinney-Vento. Then the next year we were up to 76. So 2020, 2021. 21, 22, we ended our year at 112 McKinney-Vento students, and we're currently sitting at 125. So while at one point we doubled, it has slowed a little bit, but I also am confident there are families out there and students out there that we have not identified. So continuing to improve our identification process is important. So district liaison and the student family support liaison. I'm the district liaison. Jill Hendricks is the student and family support liaison. We support our buildings and our building point of contacts, which are our building counselors, by providing assistance to the building, training district personnel, reviewing the housing questionnaires and the intake forms that come to us. We follow up with families, coordinate services, especially transportation. That's a big one that I'm involved with, is the transportation piece. Jill's great at going out into the community and gathering resources, and she'll get to share a little bit with you about that. We've established partnerships not only in the community, but within our own school community. We work with the life skills class at the high school. They do some of our laundry for us when we have donations at the Ram Landing. And then dispute resolution, which fortunately I have not gone through that process yet, but if I did, I would be prepared to handle that with a lot of research. And then our building points of contacts are our counselors. Not only are they our McKinney-Vento building points of contacts, but they also serve as our foster care point of contacts, which is, I believe Washington State is the only state which requires that we have a building point of contact for both of those programs at the school level. So they're responsible for that initial identification. They get the housing questionnaires that are in the registration packets. They look at those, they call the families, that they're that first contact with families when they see that a family maybe their living situation isn't, they're not renting or owning their own place. They connect with me around transportation. They're the eyes in the school. They look for signs of homelessness. They might reach out if they have questions or they need resources. They provide resources to the building staff and help with the needs of the students. Let's see, I can't read that one. That's so far away. Let me see here. They understand school of origin. They make referral to outside services, although we do probably handle a few more of the outside referrals, but maybe mental health and counseling outside of their own counseling. I could see where they'd be involved in that. And then they help school staff understand student needs and rights. And if they don't know, they call and we figure it out together. There is a requirement of the McKinney-Vento Act to post posters in the school district, in the main office, and in common public areas in the school. So we do have McKinney-Vento posters hanging in the entryways or in the office of all of our buildings. They are posted in English and Spanish, and they have my contact information as well as the state liaison's contact information on them. And the overall goal of McKinney-Vento is just to ensure that immediate enrollment and educational stability for children and youth experiencing homelessness, and really looking at reducing barriers for our students in terms of academic success. And super quick, sorry, I did rush that. And then Jill is here, and Jill is our ESD 105 Regional Classified Employee of the Year. She manages the Ram Landing, and Jill, you're gonna have to go kind of quick because it's gonna keep going.
Okay. All right. So that, I don't know, you can't really see that surprise on my face, but I thought I was retiring when everyone was in that room. I didn't realize I was winning an award. All right. I'm not sure how to work your little thing here. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Whoops. You better stand here and do that because that's going to be back. Okay. So how many of you here have been to Ram Landing? Okay. Not everyone. Okay. So you need to come see it. All right. So we have clothing of every size, right? We go from 0 to 4X. I don't know. Big. And I want to say a little bit about that. We are the only ones in the area that has a complete clothing store for the needy. So when Catholic Charities or someone has someone that has nothing, they come to them, they have nothing, they call me and they get to come and pick it out because West Valley has been amazing at dropping off donations for our store. Non-perishables, we have those, so they get a box, they get to fill up the box. And once Northwest Harvest opens up in like a week, that room will get a little fuller. And also we get a lot of donations from all kinds of sources. School supplies. We have school supplies, which are super important, especially when school starts, but all year long, I have parents come in for those. Community resources. We work with a lot of community resources. And I think we have a slide on that.
Can you talk about who the Ram Landing serves?
Oh, who do they serve? They see anyone that has a need. So we don't have a lot of hoops to jump through. If they say they have a need, they call and make an appointment and they come in. I see about 30 families a week. So that's about 6 families a day. Some days it's 10 families. I mean, it just depends. But anyone that has a need, McKinney-Vento comes first. I mean, I have 124 kids on my roster that I constantly keep track of. But then if someone else has a need, we take care of whoever has a need in the West Valley area. So it's pretty fantastic. Okay, this is our school supply area. That's our cart right there full of socks. I think they had a sock donation thing go on at one of the elementaries. We get so much of this stuff. We had a toy. A gal came in and brought a bunch of brand new toys. I don't even know what that other one is. Oh, I guess I could look here. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have all kinds of drives too. I mean, constantly. So these are some older ones actually that, except child nutrition, they're doing theirs right now. It ends on Friday of this week. So we've done snack drives, all kinds of back to school drives. Let me see. Let me look at my list.
Well, in child nutrition, you can see on the bottom right there, they actually put together a cookbook that they're attaching to the food bags of food that they're collecting for families. So
yeah, so they put a list out, and then we're going to bag them on Friday, and then put the recipe on them. And I'm telling you, they've been lining my hallway, and every time a family comes in, they're like, "When are those bags going to be ready?" They're pretty excited. Okay, so here are some of the resources that we use. These are the ones that we use consistently. So there's quite a few great ones there. You probably recognize some of them. Triumph gives us our diapers. Treetop loads us with all kinds of fun stuff, Apple stuff.
Yakima Neighborhood Connections has been great for housing referrals for families.
Oh, yeah. And Trust also has been fabulous. all kinds of people get into action. Network in Action just put on a huge drive, and a lot of them are from Yakima, but they love the idea of Ram Landing, and so they really got a bunch of businesses. I think there was 15 businesses that put their boxes in their business. I mean, Yakima, West Valley, all over, and just loaded us up. It was fabulous. This is some of the schools that have helped us. The Innovation Center. I don't see Homecoming. Oh, some of the innovation kids on the top left, helping bag up hygiene kits that actually are going to all the schools. I get a lot of like little trial size things. We bag those up and take them. This was a hygiene drive done by I can't remember who that is now.
That's okay.
Okay, so we're moving on. And families. Okay, and first aid kits. We got all kinds of drives going on. Homecoming court came. They actually spent the whole week helping out. The whole week before homecoming, helping out. And then they brought all the stuff and I had them put it away. And they loved it. It was super fun. The great thing about those kind of things too, once they go back to their families, they start spreading the word, right? They tell their families, who tell their grandparents, who tell their neighbors, who, it just explodes. Decca, wow. Caitlin, 6,000 items, right?
You may have seen her standing at Ray's Thriftway collecting.
Yes, 3,
on separate occasions.
I think she had 4 separate occasions. It was crazy. What was that?
Mid-level was hygiene drive.
Thank you, mid-level campus. Oh my gosh. Yes, lots and lots of good stuff.
Yeah, and so we really had to pare this presentation down. We had a lot of photographs, a lot of things that we could have shared with you, but those were just the highlights. And so year 2 in the building and serving all of West Valley School District, which is pretty phenomenal. And it really takes the right person, and Jill is that person. So I appreciate her.
Yeah. Do you have any questions? Yes.
I don't have a question, I have a plug.
Okay.
For those of you that are on social media, a terrific follow on Facebook is Ram Landing. So even though I haven't been there in person, I feel like I've been.
Yes, I know. There's lots.
It's a terrific follow. So anybody that's so inclined, it's a great follow, and it's how anything that's in need or what's going on. I know y'all do a great job of communicating. So that's just a plug, not a question.
I never used to like Facebook. I'm not really a Facebook person, but the great news is it has worked fabulously for Ram Landing because I ask for something and it shows up. I mean, like everything. It's almost a test anymore. Like I need 3 tea clothes. Yep, there they are. I'm men's jeans, whatever we are lacking, I put on there and it comes. Because people really do want to help. They just don't know how. And if you put it out there and just put it, this is exactly what we need. They're like, oh, I can do that. I have that in my closet, or I have that in my garage, or I can go get that. So it's a fabulous job. I get to see a lot of happy people. I see about 30 families a week. So it's pretty fabulous. Any more?
I have a question for Carol Ann. To me, homeless means without parent, and you mentioned that parents are involved with homeless too. How often are the kids by themselves, or is there a parent involved? A lot of the time, or seldom, or
Most of the time, there's a parent in the picture, and a lot of times they're doubled up. And so they may be living with grandparents because they can't afford housing, or they have poor credit, or various factors. And so they just economically cannot afford to get a place or can't find a place. So most of the time there's a parent involved. There are times when we have unaccompanied youth, children who are living with grandparents, but the parent isn't in the picture, would be considered an unaccompanied youth. And unaccompanied youth always qualify for the program. Anytime they don't have a parent or guardian parent in the picture. So yeah, but there's a handful of unaccompanied youth, kids who are doing it on their own and going to school, and so anything that we can do to reduce barriers for them, get them to school, provide that transportation, the school supplies that they need in order to be successful, that's really the goal there. Yeah.
And even if we had a kid down in East Yakima, if he's a West Valley kid, we would provide transportation for him to West Valley?
He would have had to be attending West Valley at the time when he had secure housing in order to qualify McKinney-Vento and remain in his school of origin in West Valley.
But then if he moved or a parent moved to somewhere else, he can still come back and we provide transportation?
Once they move, they lose that qualifying school of origin. So for example, if they left here and moved to Granger or let's just say East Valley, because we could provide transportation if they moved to East Valley, but they chose, no, we're just going to go to East Valley, then they lose that school of origin status.
But you have, I've heard of kids who are in another area and Yakima will actually provide transportation to our border and then we pick a kid up at the border.
Yeah, we'll share transportation when possible. We work a lot with ESD, bringing kids from Yakima to West Valley or even to our school. We have ESD transportation to the middle level campus and some of the elementary schools as well. So we will share transportation.
Or if they're older, they ride the bus
Yeah, city bus.
to as far as they can
Yeah,
get.
if they're of age, our mode of transportation is the city bus as often as possible. So, yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Nice job. Sorry, that was so fast.
As we're getting back to our seats, Mr. Mokel texted me, Jill, and just wanted, Jill.
Oh, there you are.
I moved, yes. I'm tricky like that. Mr. Mokel texted and wanted me to just extend his huge congratulations on Ram Landing. And so I just wanted to say that on his behalf. He's participating from home tonight. Okay. Next on the agenda is item 7, public comment of non-discussion items. Where is Stephanie? There's Stephanie. Just as a preview of tonight's meeting, later on in the meeting, the school board is going to be having a discussion item a little bit later on use of the remaining bond proceeds. After that discussion, the school board does not intend to take action, but rather give direction to administration. And after that discussion item on remaining bond funds, after that discussion by the school board, we will take public comment on that discussion item. So these are non-agenda discussion items, and Stephanie is indicating that we have no one that wishes to address the board on non-discussion items. So we'll move on to approval of consent agenda. As is usual in our business meeting, the consent agenda includes approval of minutes, approval of vouchers and payrolls, financial reports, approval of employment contracts, resignations, retirements, and separations, and leave requests. If anybody has any questions about the consent agenda, now is the time to bring those forward. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Mr. Jager approves the motion to approve the consent agenda. Call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Mr. Mokel votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next up, discussion items. As I was just alluding to, following our community forum last week, the board now will have a discussion on remaining bond funds. As I mentioned, the board is not going to take any action, but rather I think administration is looking for some direction as to how we can move forward. But this is now our time as school board members to discuss what's on your mind about this after yet another community forum and some internal deliberations, I'm sure, by all the school board members.
I don't know what the process needs to be, but I would like to make a motion if I can, or it's just discussion. I want us to look at, I think it's 14 different jobs. 14 different, I don't have my list with me tonight, and we didn't have it on the agenda, but I think there was 14 different jobs listed for about $13,800,000. It's $13,800,000. This is all off the top of an old mind, but I would like to know how I would like us to go forward and approve going forward with getting those things done.
I would support Mr. Jager's comment, with the exception of people perceiving those capital expenditures that were listed as a priority list, and those would be the only ones that, in my mind, they need to be flexible and either move down or around on that list as we have our meeting and decide the priorities of all those that were, not all of them were handed out to the public the other night. But there are some, and a lot of them, that pertain to safety, health, and the well-being of our students and our patrons, parents, constituents, all those different terms. I think those need to be looked at very closely and would approve funds being expended to resolve those issues.
Are you still talking about the 14 and just prioritizing them?
Not just that 14, no.
Oh, more than 14?
Mhm. They can move.
We can add to that list? Is that what you're saying? We could add to that list?
Or reduce.
Okay.
And replace.
And what the administration is looking for is some direction from the board on moving forward with bond council to develop a resolution. And so right now I'm hearing 2 board members giving some direction on that. If there was a third, then we could have that direction to move forward and work with bond council on that.
Yeah, I would agree with just trying to move forward here with council, with bond. I do want to make one other comment, and a member of the community brought this up with me at a previous meeting, and I think it's worth at least going back to give some clarification. And that was, we do have one item on this list that really, it doesn't neatly fall into health and safety, although it's related, and that is the issue of property acquisition. I think we need to have some clarification why that's important at this point in time. There are various pieces available very close to the heart of our campus within our community that I feel that, we need to at least consider them and take a good close look at them, because if we don't look at them closely now, they may not be available in the future. And our school district is bound to grow if it's not growing already. We're already seeing signs of that. And we need to take this into account very seriously. It can affect health and safety in some ways, because some of these facilities may offer better situational setups for either the environment, the school itself, or whatever our community needs might be. But I just want to make a point for that, because it is something that sticks out. It doesn't come along very often, but I think it's equally important to consider along with all these other ones. And it is something that has long-term implications. There's another factor to consider as well. It's something that, unlike the other items that once you build them, they probably immediately start to either depreciate or their value starts to decrease, but they are valuable to us in terms of how they're used. Land acquisition generally will hold its value. It's something that even if we decide not to do something with it later, we could potentially retrieve our money back in some other form or either decide to use it. But again, I want to point that out simply because it does merit some further explanation as to why it's on this list. And I hope that kind of helps give you an idea of why I think it's important, but I do want to make sure that everyone at least knows that that's part of at least my logic in looking at this and why I think it's important for us to consider at this point.
Well, I agree. It isn't health and safety, but it is something we we need to address also. And I'm happy to see it on there.
Okay. In terms of, well, let me first, to kind of summarize where we're at to this point.
Okay.
I believe that the majority of the board, based upon the first three comments, would like to move forward with a resolution of some sort that bond counsel would prepare that would allow us to utilize the funds. I think I've heard from other school board I think I've heard from the school board members also in the past, maybe not this evening, that there is a desire to be specific about the projects that we are going to pursue. What is a question, and so I have written down a few bullet points about this, but I again want to just say that the majority of I want to declare that the majority of the board wants to move forward with utilizing the proceeds. I will say that for on the issue about whether we should utilize the proceeds or defease, my attitude remains the same, that we should defease the monies back to the community or back through the defeasance process. And it really just, for me, again, I can debate myself with the best of everyone, including some propositions that make a lot of fiscal sense to do these projects now. But I think that for me, where this comes down to is when we passed Apple Valley and Summit View, it was done with a strategy in mind that we were going to build these two schools, and that's it. Of course, we had no way of knowing that we would be in the position that we are now, and we can debate that some more. But I don't want to take up a whole bunch more time. Mr. Mokel has his hand up, and I know he wants to say some things, so I just wanted to acknowledge that in a second. As far as moving forward, and it appears that we're going to be moving forward in the direction of utilizing the proceeds, from my personal perspective, it does the district and our community no good for me to not meaningfully participate in the process. If we are going to use the funds, then I want to try to do what I can to support that, even though I may vote no on the resolution to pass. Because moving forward, if we're going to execute on these projects, all of us want to do so in the best way possible. So with that in mind, I'd like to just submit some thoughts for your consideration. First of all, in terms of the actual resolution and moving forward with the resolution, in agenda prep with Mr. Jager last week and Dr. Finch and Mr. Conley, I suggested that a couple board members meet along with Peter and Joe with bond counsel about the actual crafting of that resolution. In the interim period of time between the agenda prep meeting and now, we could also ask bond counsel to appear electronically via Zoom, and we could do it during a study session so that all of us would have the ability to, we just have to, that'd just be a matter of scheduling it. So, but relative to the resolution itself, the questions that I would have would be sort of along the lines of what Mr. Meyer's saying, which is, does that resolution needs to have a specific dollar amount of what we plan to use, what we're going to defease, if any. And then the question is should we, or what would that resolution look like in terms of identifying the specific projects or not? Okay. Or does the resolution then say that the school board is going to adopt a budget through the regular budget process, kind of like what we do with our annual budget that we do in the summertime, and that as things, as we'll identify the projects, we'll budget it, as things may change, then that would require further public hearing and further revision. I just would like to make sure that I understand exactly that in the resolution. And that's why I think I'd like, if I'm not dead set against this about Dave and Mark participating with bond counsel, but I think that being a part of that discussion, at least for me, would be helpful. And I would like to do that. So that's just, again, speaking for me. Number two, again, a little bit along the lines of Mr. Meyer, and I'm not exactly sure that this is exactly part of the resolution itself, but when we, as we know, we did a long-range facilities plan, and we had Seabury here and Phil Crocker lead us on that. It generated a report. I believe, if I understand that report correctly, 10 of the projects that are on the list are inclusive within that long-range report. Well, as we move forward, part of that report also was, how are we going to deal with the junior high? Now, some of the projects that we have identified here with the junior high, I think we do regardless if we do a major mod or a rebuild. But I think my point is that as we are prioritizing how we're going to attack this list and the use of this money, I think that we need to probably re-engage CBRE Erie to help us with that process of prioritizing and attacking the list that we have as it pertains to the long-range facilities plan, and sort of take it to the next level as we look at what are the next schools that we're going to identify to attack for major modification and or new construction, and building all of that in so that we're not having regrets, so to speak, with attacking our list. Third, I think this is also part of the long-range facilities plan, that we've received comments about taking care of our facilities and what we've done historically about allocating resources to facilities and setting aside $1 million a year for the last several years to capital projects to take care of our needs. I question, based upon the facilities that we have, not just what our best practices, but what our facilities are, what should we be doing? I don't have a great answer to that question in terms of what should we be doing? Are we committing enough? Are we on top of this? Is this going to get us on top of the deferred maintenance list? And if it's not, then what will it take to get us there? Again, I think that's part of where we need some outside help with that process. Next, I'd be concerned if we said, we would like to use 13, 14, $15 million of this money. And we have this list and we have the long-range facilities plan, but it becomes a bit of a free-for-all. And maybe I'm overreacting, but we heard one thing during the community forum about something that was not on our list. And so now I just think we really need to have that organized approach of attacking the list and doing that list and not making this a free-for-all. I know that when we were building Apple Valley and Summit View, the people in those buildings were very concerned about us. Don't you dare start expending monies, that these bond monies, until these schools are done. And so I worry about staying the course on that. I just wanted to say that out loud. Maybe again, I'm overreacting to one comment that I've heard. And then finally, something that's not on here that I think we've talked about is, or in fact, I know we've talked about, is setting aside money in addition to what is on this list, but setting aside some money for Apple Valley and Summit View, along the lines of the example that where we had the I'm blanking on the being able to use the cell phones in the
Oh, right,
schools,
yeah.
the equipment necessary to be able to effectively utilize cell phones that makes that possible. And where we spent some money to complete that. And those are some of the things that were to make the schools, for lack of a better way of saying it, more livable as we're into the schools now that we're in them. So setting some money aside. So that really isn't addressed in this list. And I think we talked about that. So again, I'm not trying to process us to death. I'm not trying to slow us down. I'm trying to hopefully, my intent is, again, not to make this a lot more complicated than it needs to be, but to try to make it that if we're gonna go down this road, that we do so in an as organized, efficient, and getting the best bang for our dollar as it pertains to the entire plan for our facilities moving forward. So thank you for your consideration.
You bet.
So Mark Malcolm, maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark Mokel. Did you?
Oh, go ahead.
Should we let Mark?
No, yeah, let Mark go, 'cause
okay.
I have a couple comments.
I'm sorry. Yes,
All right.
thank you. Hold on. Okay, Mark Mokel. Oh,
First off, I want to apologize for my voice. It's difficult for me to talk today. Are you putting me up to the?
I'm trying.
Does that work?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's really good.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to apologize for my voice. It's very difficult for me to talk today. So I'm going to keep my comments brief. Everything that Mr. Thorner spoke about, that we have hashed out for over the last 6 months or so, I agree with. These are the list that we have and additional items that are coming forward to us recently are all needs in our district that need to be addressed. However, my fear is that we are going to jeopardize future bonds and levies, being able to pass future bonds and levies by attacking it this way. So I am in 100% in favor of the easement of this money and to look at that list and run a capital levy to address those needs on the list. Before we make our final decision, fellow board members, please think about the future of our district and what that's going to mean for the kids down the road. Instant gratification is great, but we also need to make sure that we're thinking about, we need to think about the future. My voice is tired and I'm going to listen in from here on.
Thank you, Mr. Mokel.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Strong.
So, but thank you, first of all, Mr. Thorner and Mr. Mokel, for your comments. I do have some concerns, though, on some of the things I heard. Not disagreements, just concerns. So, one, I want to start with the list itself first. My one comment here is we started with a list which was longer than this. We have distilled it down to these items that we have identified are what we feel are the most critical, most important items that we need to address right now if we were to use funds. So I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. I want to be careful that we don't start expanding because I don't want to see this turned into a wish list come true. And in fairness to Mr. Mokel's point, I think if we start doing that, then we run into the danger of watering down our initial argument, which was that these are critical items that we don't feel should wait. They're only going to cost more money down the road. Kids won't have the advantage of the things they perhaps need right now. One area I do disagree. I don't feel it's instant gratification because it's going to take a while to do a lot of these things anyway. It's not like we're saying if we did these things, we're going to have them in 4 months. Some of these things could take years or, most of a year to complete. So I think we need to stay focused on, my point is stay focused on the things we've already talked about, that we've already told the community, these are what we're going to try and work on. The other part, I just want to, it's been said, and I just don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're not talking about using all of the funds. I hope that there's a portion of it that can go back to the community I've said this before. In my mind, I think there's a middle ground here that can be made. It doesn't mean it's going to be 50-50, but I think we use the funds for the most critical items. We've identified what we feel, and we have the common theme, which makes a lot of sense to me, health and safety. These are things kids and students need now. Health and safety should never be something that we think we're going to do better by waiting on. These are things that need to be taken care of quicker than, or sooner rather than later. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that if we were to use some of the funds, I do feel that there's a portion that should go back to the community in form of the fees funds. I think that's accomplishable. I think it's something we could do, and I think it makes perfect sense. One other thing I want to say about this is, even if we were to do this, this would never be, in my mind, saying to the community that we're never going to come back to you or need more funds for things down the road. This is just, the idea in my mind is, we may ask you for less than we would without getting these things done. So I think that's an important consideration as well. It's not going to be that this will say we'll never need a capital levy for some of these expenditures, or we're never going to run another bond, or we can never do it again. Those needs are always going to be there. They're going to be there forever. They're going to be there for years to come when none of us are around. So we can't say that. But what we've got to do is look forward to the future, which is why you see the land acquisition on there. That's a future thing that we need to consider right now. And then these other items, I think they speak for themselves. I really do. I will make one last plug. And I know that's, since I got on the board, they say it's unpopular to talk about, but I do feel that the athletic stuff, that it needs to be done. I've said this before, it gets kicked down the road every time it comes up. We always say that, well, that's not, the message to the kids is that's not as important as the other things. And say that to a kid who's twisted his ankle or turned his knee in the sod or soil because we didn't take care of those things. These are things that will make a difference, and I think that's what we should be about. So I like your points, Mr. Thorner. They're very good points. I'm not going to take anything away from you. You're absolutely entitled to your opinion, and that's why the five of us are up here. You know, I said it before. I believe this very strongly. Each one of us, you know, we have our feelings about this, but we all feel we're doing what's in the best interest of the school district. So I still feel it's a no-lose scenario. It shouldn't be that just because we do one thing with it, that the rest are angry and feel that, you know, well, I'm not going to support the school district. I think we've done a fantastic job up to now. I mean, Dr. Finch has done a great job as well. I think all of us have contributed our time and our energy to trying to do the best thing. And I think that will continue regardless of what happens here. So I just don't want to lose sight of the overall picture here in favor of, you know, us being divided on this issue. It's healthy sometimes that there's a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote. It doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but it does represent a lot of thought going into the process. So.
Well, I understand that. And, you know, through the oversight and the due diligence of the board and all the experts that put in the estimates, bids, and whatever for the entire project, this was not something that we had planned at all. Mm-hmm. You know, the results of the pandemic, lack of supplies, lack of labor, all of it. People needing jobs that couldn't find them anywhere else, so we had them available here to finish ours on time. And because of the way that they managed it, our project manager, we ended up with an overage of some funds available. And I heard it the other night at our previous board meeting that, you know, it's one of those, a bird in the hand worth two in the bush. And it's money that is there. The community voted for us to use it on the schools. And in my opinion, that list that we have for the most part, and I don't agree with all of it, is addressing some dire needs of the school now. Obviously, we got behind by capital projects, deferring them. Well, we found ourselves in a hole. This is an opportunity to get out of that hole. We'll have to look at our budget and possibly move more money into the capital fund. But every time we do that, we have to weigh it against what do we have to give up for our students and for our constituents the whole community. It's not an easy decision. But I think, I have confidence in my fellow board members that even though we don't always agree and won't always agree on all of it, if we decide on a path to move forward, then even though I voted against it, I'm going to follow it and do my best to see that it's done in a manner that's most advantageous to our students and our patrons. Now you know where I stand.
I just got to mention that somebody needs to say something about Chevrolet. They did an amazing job, and that's probably the main reason why we have this extra money is, and Kyle Clark, who was our lead person with Chevrolet, they did an amazing job. The second thing is that our students from Whitehall or Summit View and Apple Valley who spent 2 years at the Freshman Center so that we could tear those buildings down and get them all built without having kids around. That was a critical thing. And if any of you were ever at the Freshman Center, when they had two buildings up there, it was cruel and unusual punishment for 2 years. And they stood there and they did it all, and they did a great job. And that's another reason why we're in the spot we are now, is because the kids and the teachers and parapros and parents of those two buildings stuck it out for 2 years so we could be here. My bottom line is very simple. I do not understand how I can explain to my patrons in my area giving the money back and then in 2 years asking it back again for a capital project levy. I don't think most people understand that. And in 2 years, we're looking at what we talked about. Food was 15% inflation. You're going to look at least in 2 years, 15% inflation for the cost that we could go at now. I think we need to get it done now, not in 2 years. And I think a lot of the people in this community would agree with that thinking. Not the people that show up at our meetings, obviously, but I think most people in the community would agree that it's silly to not do it right now while we have the opportunity, and to come back in 2 years and ask for the money. Most people would not understand what the hell we're doing if we did that. And so that's why I'm sticking with using the money right now. I really appreciate Mr. Thorner and Mr. Mokel. They've been class acts during this discussion. It has been a long, I'm not sure how long we've argued about this.
A while.
It's been a long time. And to see us heading in the direction that I think we should be going finally is very heartwarming to me. So, whatever.
Again, if I may, Mr. President, as one board member, I've sat up here and listened to threats and innuendos and all kinds of things that, the dire future and all of that stuff. Well, there's an acronym out there. It's FEAR. That's false evidence appearing real. And I'm not going to succumb to it now, and I haven't in the past. So I think I will rely on my colleagues, their experience, knowledge, and the community that I've had a chance to interact with, and we'll come up with a solution. And knowing fully well that 50% of you aren't going to be happy with me, and 50% of you are going to be inviting me to dinner. So, I mean, it's just the way it is. It's like being an official in an athletic match. You're not going to win every time. It just doesn't happen. So thank you.
And it sounded like there was interest in having the study session.
Well, that
so
was gonna
all,
be-
all
that was-
5 board members could participate
Yeah.
and have
Yeah.
it be transparent with the community as
I'm okay
well.
with that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll go ahead and take that as direction, and we'll work on that.
I think
Yeah.
that's good. Thank you.
And I think that just again, from a cost perspective, that council is in Seattle. I mean, we can easily have them participate by Zoom, and we would be here. And I mean, we don't need to absorb that additional cost it's
Right.
for them to come over here.
Makes sense.
Okay. So we'll get that on just at its earliest convenience. And again, just want to say, this is not the actual vote. This is providing direction to administration so that we can further advance the process as was outlined by Mr. Conley during the community forum, and which then will lead to a resolution. But we need a couple of other steps in the interim. And so I think the bond council, and I appreciate the board's direction on that. So.
And maybe
Anything else?
just again for the audience. So the bond council will develop the resolution. Resolution will be presented to the board. There'll be a public hearing at that time to take public comment on the resolution. And then at a following meeting, then there would be a vote on the resolution.
But this upcoming study session is not it's so
Correct.
that bond council can answer our questions as they develop the actual resolution.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Mr. Mokel does not have his hand up. Would he like to say anything? And he didn't text me either. Earlier you saw me texting. That was just to him because he had his hand up, and I asked him to put it down, which he did. So that's all I said. Okay. Thank you to the board members. Item 10, public comments of discussion items. So as I just mentioned, we've just had our discussion item. And so I don't think we had a sign up sheet, did we?
Nope.
Okay, so we'll just entertain public comment at this time. Mr. Matthews.
Thank you. So I think the board has touched on some questions and concerns that I have moving forward. I think first of all, it's important to understand that while we might want some of these projects done now, the reality is in all cases, they're going to have 3 to 6 months of architectural and engineering planning kinds of times. And secondarily to that, very few of these projects are actual projects that appear to be something that it can occur during the school year. So I think in the absolute best case, you're talking about a few projects that can be accomplished in the summer of 24, if I'm doing my calendar right. And I think it's important from an overall district capacity perspective to understand you can't even do everything in summer of 24. One of the questions that has been brought before the board as it related to Apple Valley and Summit View was, are these projects something we can deliver with in-house staff, or do we need to augment that staff either through temporary capital staff or through outside assistance, and ultimately the district selected outside assistance? So those are the same questions that are going to need to be considered by the board as you move forward. I think the phrase safety and security is a really slippery slope. We would all agree that, I think we'd all agree that floor coverings that were rolled and tattered would represent a safety or security, a safety issue for students in a hallway. I think we all have this understanding that both the condition of the track and the condition of the playing surface represents a safety issue. But I also then struggle to not say that supplemental security cameras in buildings are safety issues, and additional and improved communications within the buildings are safety issues. So I don't know where you draw the line between a individual project and what is safety by nature. So as projects are being considered, I think it's important to understand, and again, I don't want to, the project list that the board even started with in this consideration is at least 9 years old. The reality is no one's gone back and ground sourced. Are these still the priorities? Are these still the weak links within our facilities? And so as we look at lists, even both iterations of the long range planning process went back to the same list, and that same list was old when we got it. So I do think that it's valuable to go back, and again, understanding that you're going to hear a series of wants rather than needs, is to go back and ground truth what is actually out there for deferred maintenance and projects that really need to be accomplished. I brought this up before. Right now on the current project list, there's about $1.5 million in items associated with the junior high facility. And as I shared with the board last time, I believe the first significant priority in the most recent long range plan was essentially figure out what the heck to do with the middle level campus. Is West Valley a district where we're going to have one 6th through 8th grade building that's going to be 1,400 odd students? Or does the educational model for the district suggest that we should be 2 700 square foot or 700 student buildings? And so ultimately, that still becomes a foundational element because that in all likelihood represents the next capital project of significant value that would be considered. So there's a number of elements that are, as I believe Mr. Thorner pointed out, some of these projects are really just captured in deferred maintenance as part of the long range facilities plan. But they still need to be ground truth. And I still think there's additional items out there that need to be considered. I'm fully in supporting, as Mr. Thorner had brought up. I struggled before asking the question, how many custodians does a building need? What is the appropriate level of investment in buildings by a school board? And again, this is information 6 or 7 years old. There aren't any answers out there. There wasn't any kind of survey data out of Washington State schools. Part of that, of course, is because every district is just absolutely different. Buildings are different, capacities are different. Expectations of cleanliness are even going to vary between buildings and districts. So I don't know there's a right way to understand that, but it's the appropriate question is what should be the reasonable support by the school board as part of the budgeting process to make sure that we are maintaining buildings, not making them shinier, not making them newer necessarily, but maintaining the condition of the buildings. So I do think that there are a number of other steps that I would encourage the board to take through this process. I do wish Mr. Connolly was here tonight just to, again, be part of this process. I wrote down floor refinishing. I understood every gym floor in the district needs to be refinished. Well, where does that trip into being a safety issue versus when is it just a surface that we're not proud of? So I think we need to go back and through that process and perhaps through the district, through the budgeting process for the next calendar year is try to make a first real effort at trying to right size the investment in facilities so that the $1 million that is invested each year by the school board in that provides sustaining value. Last point is we look at elements on buildings like Cottonwood and White Hollow. And we really should be asking the questions, what are the other mechanisms by which we can achieve those projects, but achieve those projects with some kind of savings? The entire process through the state is called ESCO. It's an energy savings effort. And frankly, districts will go into buildings and do all of the stuff that's behind the scenes. They'll replace the old motor with something that's 50 times more efficient. They'll replace a system that manages heating and ventilation with air pressure with new digital controls. So when we look at a building like White Hollow or Cottonwood, where we're going to go and invest in a chiller, we should be really asking the question today, is a chiller the right technology for that building? Are the components that we're going to rely upon to continue the operation of that chiller, is that something that we should really be tearing down and replacing now as part of a energy savings kind of approach? So there's a lot of questions. Again, I think it's just going to take some time to figure out through this process. The numbers that are estimated on the March 20th, they're just estimates. They're not reality. We recognize that prices are going to go up and down. We recognize that the choices that are going to be made by the architects and engineers or recommendations made by architects and engineers are going to change what the project costs are going to be, plus everything else that's going on in the world. So I guess in some respects, I'm glad the board is making a decision and moving forward because as with you, this process has been long, and I look forward to the opportunity to work on new things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marinacci.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. I just want to echo many of his comments. I want to thank Mr. Strong for providing some additional insights as to maybe the reasoning behind the property acquisition. As a suggestion, and I think it was well stated, I think Mr. Meyer mentioned it, the list is just a partial list. There's a bunch of other stuff. Maybe an idea is you show online entire list of items that are out there, and then the reasoning behind why it's being narrowed down to this, in like in a memo format. So Joe currently has their, the memo that was preparation for you guys and the different steps. Maybe to help the public understand, I was just checking with Amy, 2 people were listening online. And so it was wonderful to hear your comments, but we've got 5 community members plus staff and other folks. And I think if it was posted online and maybe with the email communication, which was nice when you're talking about the community meeting, say, hey, we've posted some additional information. There's been many questions about if the board decides to do this list. I understand it isn't finalized. This is why we're thinking about why we're thinking, and here's the priorities. And if it is the health and safety thing, plus, possibilities for the future, great. Try to articulate, because I think a lot of community members are sitting out there saying, hey, why did you come up with this? I thought it was going to be in perhaps the public response. I think the gentleman at the last meeting, community meeting, Mr. Wolcott, had asked a question about, is there a legal concern? Because the original bond language had the language about replacement. So maybe you guys already got an answer from that from our attorney. So I think that would be helpful. About the, Mr. Matthews made a good point about the long range, report. It's dated, it's old. Just a suggestion. Maybe it makes sense to reconstitute a new group to get together to look at that list and take a closer look. And I would recommend before we go out and we hire an engineering firm, what have you, I would say that we probably have a lot of community members. I don't know if they'd be interested who are in that area. I can say from a number of my clients, they do think about their physical plant. And as Mr. Matthews talking about, it does differ from district to district. But I think if we could get some community members involved, maybe they can offer some insights. And if that was lacking, then maybe we need to go out to an outside engineer. I would be a little nervous, again, about setting aside money in a pot, just related specifically for Apple Valley and Sunview. Again, I brought this up when it was brought up as a concept, as long as there's clear parameters around that, that says what those funds could be used for. And so there should be like a mission statement, parameters, what have you. If you decide to go down that path, and then it has a sunset date, and it says specifically, okay, these funds will be defeased back or whatever the story is. Because otherwise it's like money looking for a problem. So I just would be cautious about that. That's what I got. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to address the board? Now is your chance. Going once, twice. Okay. I'll close the public comment period on discussion items. Action items. We have 6 travel requests for some sports medicine symposium and some upcoming state spring sports and a trip, I think, for Mountain View students to go to Camp Dudley in
That's right.
early June. Anybody have any questions on the proposed travel requests? Would you like to take them as a group or individually? It is up to whoever would like to make a motion.
I move we approve the 6 travel requests.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jager. I'll call for a vote. Hold on. Surprised I haven't messed this up already. Okay, Mr. Mokel is unmuted, or I'm unmuted. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Mr. Mokel?
He lost his voice.
Must have. So I'll call the motion passing at 4-0.
There you go.
Aye.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
thanks, Mark.
That's cruel.
5-0. Items arising.
Yep.
I think we've been talking about items arising all meeting. Reports.
Right. The written reports are administrative reports, enrollment, safety, travel log, high school ASB, and then all the building reports. It was nice to see the nice job that each of the principals did on their building reports.
Agreed. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Just real briefly, I'd like to share, I provide this written report, but the legislative session is starting to get close to the finalization. And so we are getting a clearer sense on some of the budgetary impacts. One is the regionalization. In the law, there was set that there would be a review of regionalization periodically, and that review is happening this year. The Senate came out with their proposal last week, and that was to eliminate regionalization for West Valley. The House came out yesterday with their proposal, and that was to reduce it over the next 2 years. So that would be a lesser impact for us in the upcoming school year. I did testify to the Senate Ways and Means Committee on Friday, contacted our local legislators, and we'll continue to monitor this. So I guess at this point, we would be more hopeful for the House proposal than the Senate. I guess you would say that's the House proposal is the lesser of two evils. Transition kindergarten, it's clear that there's going to be some changes. Currently, transition kindergarten, we have 2 classrooms, one at Apple Valley, one at Cottonwood. Those are funded with basic ed funding. It's clear that there's going to be some changes to that. There'll be a hold harmless in the upcoming school year, so we'll be able to run those classes with basic ed funding. And then the following year, it will be a special program that you'll have to do an application to. It will be basically competitive grant funding. There is in the legislation and the proposals from the Senate, I saw that there was money that would be provided in the following year. They basically would have a certain number of slots for the whole state, and so there would be a competitive process. They have said that they would put that competitive process in place so that we would have ample time to know if we were funded or not, so that we would be able to make plans for the 24-25 school year. But just wanted to give us all a heads up about the changes to transition kindergarten. And then finally, the community eligibility provision. We heard earlier from Magdalene Benedicto, our director of child nutrition, that there are 2 of our elementary schools that do not qualify for the community eligibility provision, Apple Valley and Cottonwood. We were hopeful because there was some talk in the legislative session to have universal meals, but it looks like that is not going to happen. And so we will have to make a decision for the upcoming school year if we have the funds to be able to provide funding for all lunches at Apple Valley and Cottonwood for the following year, or if maybe we go back to handling that where students on free and reduced meal or have the assistance, and then students that don't qualify would need to pay for lunch. So that'll be something that we'll need to look at as we look forward to the upcoming school year. We do have reductions that we were planning already because of the reduction of the federal emergency relief funding, the ESSER funding. So we will have some reductions there. And now we looks like we'll have some reductions because of regionalization. So we're really going to need to look at ways that we can make some reductions. And of course, we always want to keep the focus on the classroom and have reductions in the classroom be the last thing that we reduce. So some of the other things that maybe we've been able to fund for the last couple of years, we may have to take a look at and make some reductions there.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Finch. Board reports, board development.
I just, Peter, I wasn't up on it, but initially the legislature said they were going to focus on funding special ed, whatever happened with that.
In both House and Senate, there was some increases in special education. So they haven't really made it clear, like the impact at each district, what it would be, but that's something we're going to obviously be following and take a look at if there's some increases for West Valley.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We have things to sign, the board members have things to sign, and we will adjourn at 8:45. Thank you.
Thank you.